Hello everyone, I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself as your new bio teacher for the rest of the year. I'm Dr. Gavin and I probably know some of you and not others. I'm really looking forward to taking you through the rest of your Year 13 bio year. I know Miss Hickey's done lots of amazing stuff with you and you probably know everything already, but I will do my best to help you however I can. And we have lots of time, so that's great. We don't need to panic, it'll all be fine. And as well as me, we're going to have a whole Year 13 cohort revision during lockdown, so that will be great. You'll be able to hear from lots of other teachers as well as me. But I thought I'd do a real brief overview of human evolution, and then we'll have a meet-up later on this week, and you can ask me any questions. This is going to be super fast, but basically you can split human evolution into three parts. There's the biological evolution, the change in the physical features that are passed down in the genes. The cultural evolution, so that's the skills and the learning that changes. And then the dispersal theories, which is how we think that Homo species moved around the world from Africa. Okay, so I'll do them in those three parts. So the first one, biological evolution, you can break that into bipedalism features and the fact that we got brainier. Okay, and so this section is basically about, I'm bringing that back to front, what changed? What are the physical features that changed? Why did they change? And how did they change? And then a bit about some different species. It's basically trends over time. Okay, so what did change? So we're going to use a teddy bear to demonstrate some of the skeletal features. So back when we were quadrupeds, that means walking on four legs or moving with four limbs most of the time, usually through the trees. Okay, we had long arms for that. We had feet that were more like hands with opposable toes to grip onto branches. Our hands were also like that, less dexterous than they are now, but they could do this sort of movement. Our rib cages were hanging down this way because that's where our weight was going, and our heads hung off the front of our body down that way, like that. Then when we become bipedal, we end up with a slightly different shape. So instead of the C-shaped spine we have when we're quadrupedal, we have an S-shaped spine. So it goes out and in and out again to keep our weight centered. Also, our skull relative to our spine moves back a bit, again to center the weight over there. Our rib cages become flattened this way, but our hips become wider this way to help again with weight distribution, but our legs then move in towards the center, so we can walk like this and keep our center of gravity nice and stable rather than lurching from side to side like we would if we were have an ape pelvis. Feet become forward facing. That opposable big toe becomes a forward facing big toe that we can push off with, and our hands start to have lots of more dexterous features with being able to do precision grips with all our fingers. As well as skeletal features, there are quite a few features in the skull, so knowing some of those is useful too. It's also very useful that I happen to have a skull at home. So this is a plastic replica of a human skull. We can see if we had an ape skull to compare it with, we would have much bigger jaws here, and we would have a sagittal crest, and that's where the muscles attached that worked the big strong jaw muscles for eating all the vegetation. And also these things here, that's the zygomatic arch, that's where the muscles would go through to then attach to the jaw down here. So that's also a lot bigger in apes. Apes also, all the skulls have this hole in the middle, which is the foramen magnum, and that's where the spinal cord attaches and goes into the brain. If you can imagine, here's our teddy on all fours, that this big skull hanging down here, the foramen magnum is right back here, it hangs off the back, and then as we become upright, we want the weight of the skull to be in the middle centered over our spine, and so that's why it moves more centrally in the pictures, so that it can be here rather than there. What else? Oh, we've got a nice smooth cranium. We don't have a nuchal crest either, which is to hold big strong neck muscles, because that heavy head is hanging down, because now we're nice and balanced centrally over here. And we have a much bigger capacity in our brain. Big forehead, nice smooth skull, and the capacity, it's going to come off. The amount of volume inside the skull is a lot more. So we're basically got bigger brains and better neural connections in the brains too. And special features in our brain of Wernicke's area and Broca's area for speech and language. And so this all changed because our where we lived changed. There became bigger distances between the trees, and so we now had to travel between clumps of trees to get food. So being able to walk on two legs was better for that, and we could carry food in our hands and take it back to family groups or mates or offspring. And so there's lots of feedback loops about how the parents that had feet that were better for walking and hands that were better for carrying, their offspring would do better, and so those genes for those features would be passed on, and it made evolution happen a bit faster, albeit still incredibly slow. So there's lots and lots of species, there's lots of names, there's lots of dates. Don't get too bogged down in all of those. Just think of it more like a trend. So we went from being quite small, short, ape-like creatures who just began to start being able to move on two legs, but still had quite small brains, weren't very clever, couldn't do much, but we were starting to be able to use our hands. And then over time, the brains got bigger and bigger. We got cleverer with our hands. We could do more, we could eat better, and we got taller. So taller, brainier, bigger brains, and more skills. And that's biological evolution. Cultural evolution. So this is basically not the passing down of physical features or things passed down in genes, but it is to do with learning and the sort of skills we're capable of. The two big ones are tool cultures. So that's what tools were used and how they were made, and fire, the advantages of fire, and then there's other ones, so other things that developed our ability to communicate with each other with language, our ability to think, including abstract thinking, language, art, burials, things like that, and then also clothing, shelter, and domestication of animals and crops. Basically with these, if you say something sensible as to why it was an advantage or why it might have developed, that's good, you'll probably get some marks. So the tools, there's 4 different tool cultures. I won't go into them in detail here, but basically they started off being able to like pick up a rock from the ground and use it. Maybe give it a couple of blows and shape it and do a little bit of usefulness with it. And then as we went on, we learned how to make more tools with many more blows to shape it more accurately into different tools, so we could start cutting things and have different purposes for it. So the tools got more complicated, they were harder to make, which meant we needed more brain power to do that, but they had more uses too, so we could get better food basically from using our tools as we went on in time. And fire, I've made some fire for you. So fire was very useful because it could, anything you can think of, keeps you warm, kills off bacteria in your food, cooks your food so it's easier to digest. You might gather around the fire and have more light in the evening, so you could maybe talk to people, have more rest time, experiment, lots of things that you can do with fire. Right, better move on, taking too long. Okay, last chunk is dispersal theories. So this is basically the fact that there's 2 main theories. The older theory is the multi-regional theory. So we all started in Africa. Okay, there's no debate about that. The oldest fossils are in Africa. Homo erectus came out of Africa, went into Europe and around as far as Asia. That definitely happened in both theories. But this theory says that Homo erectus left Africa, and then in Africa and in Europe and in Asia, somehow, simultaneously, Homo erectus developed through a bit of gene flow, a bit of interbreeding, that all became Homo sapiens in these 3 different areas. However, the newer theory, the out of Africa theory, is yes, Homo erectus did leave Africa and move to Europe and Asia, and there's different populations living here, but in Africa, Homo sapiens developed in Africa. It was quite a hard time. They had to be quite clever. They had to leave because of restrictions in food supplies, and they started traveling, and they basically, while there was still the other species living over here, they migrated again and basically sort of overtook the other species because we had become quite clever and become Homo sapiens originally in Africa, and then did another migration out of Africa. And that is my not so short video of a summary of all of human evolution. Hope that wasn't too bad, and we'll have some more time to go into things in more detail. If you want to, you can ask some questions and stuff when I see you in person. And yeah, that's it for now. See you next time.